Thank you for your time. My name is Baytullah, and this is Shooting from the Hip. My co-host today is Slim. How you
Hi,
doing?
good. How are you?
Good. All right, so today we are going to be talking about breath work and meditation, and why do they matter, and what are they? We'll try to sum them up really briefly. I don't want to, we won't overly focus on them. That's something that we can dive more deeply into on Bet On It, the podcast. Okay, so in terms of why it's important, let's just start by saying how negative, um, uh, the negative aspects of poor breathing, how they can affect the individual. Okay, so the average person breathes about 25,000 times in the course of a single day. On 30 to 50% of adults breathe are mouth breathers. So that has a very negative effect in that it induces an autonomic nervous system response, which is a fight or flight response because your nervous system can't tell the difference between an actual threat or a perceived threat. So the moment you start breathing shallowly and rapidly, it thinks you're under duress. So then what it does, it responds by dumping stress hormones. So then you're under a constant state of stress. So we're hopefully what will happen by the end of this will show you how to alleviate that and how to maybe pay attention to the fact that you may or you may not be doing that. All right, so this is why breathing is so important. Research shows changing the way we breathe can influence weight, athletic performance, allergies, asthma, snoring, mood, stress, and focus, and so much more. Okay, so all these things become impacted by the way that you breathe, positively or negatively. And then if you're a mouth breather, somebody who breathes, say, as many as from 15 to 17 times in a minute, you're creating that kind of response, and it actually clouds your ability to perceive things and your cognitive function. So it's really important to keep that in mind. I'm just going to briefly read some information I think is kind of really relevant, and I think that everybody should hear. And then if you have any comments, Slim, just feel free to jump in. Okay, so uh, there's a Nobel Prize winner whose name is Louis Ignarro, and his area of specialty was the study of nitric oxide and its effects on viruses. Nitric oxide is an antiviral, antibacterial, and antimicrobial agent. So in a study in 2005, it was performed with nitric oxide to see its effects on viruses, particularly the SARS virus. And what they noted was that it blunted and stunted the effects and advancements of the SARS virus. Why mention this? Because nitric oxide is created and released into the lungs via the nose. So if you're mouth breathing, you're not getting any of it. So assuming that you actually use nasal breathing, which is you breathing exclusively in and out through the nose, um, this method of breathing actually will help or actually induces your nasal sinuses to release nitric oxide. So you're inhaling and exhaling exclusively through the nose, and the rate is slow, light, and deep. So you're using the full range of your lungs, and you're slowing down the breathing. So you may only be breathing maybe to as many maybe as 6 times, 5 times in a minute. So think about the differential there, right? The panic breathers 15 to 17 times, and somebody who's nasal breathing and relaxed, it's 2 to 6, say, times in the course of a minute. Very, very critically important. When you breathe slow, lightly, and deeply through the nose, this ensures the release of the nitric oxide, right? And what it does is it actually has a great effect on the lungs. It opens up the capillaries, allows for greater exchange of gases between the blood and the oxygen that you're breathing in. So it makes it more efficient. It makes it easier for your body to do. Nitric oxide is also an important component in manufacturing surfactant. And surfactant, why is that so important? Because it keeps your lungs and the tissue of the lungs soft and supple, right? Really important for breathing, right? So, and we do know that some viruses have very negative effects on the lungs, right? So again, another reason why to be breathing nasally. All right, so the other way to increase nasal nitric oxide into the lungs is to use humming. That's right, humming, right? If you follow the prescribed method, it can increase nitric oxide from as little as 7 times to as much as 15 times more than nasal breathing alone, right? So it's recommended to 3 times a day to actually engage in like the humming to release more nitric oxide. And again, it just enriches the quality of your breath, which has a profound effect on, remember, everything from the way your biology functions to the way your mind works. Really super important. Typically, I recommend to people that throughout the course of the day, if you can find 3 times where you're listening to music, just pick 2 songs and hum to the song. So, and in doing that, then it'll elicit the nitric oxide. And then remember, when you finish the humming, you have to inhale through the nose. That's how you transport the nitric oxide from the sinuses into the lungs. Really key piece of information. So very important to know. Okay, so Slim, any questions, queries, insights, anything that you feel like we're sharing, or is this all making sense so far?
This is good. I'm curious to hear what's next.
Okay, I actually got a question for you. Have you ever paid attention to your own breathing? Would you say that you're like a nasal breather or combination mouth breather, nasal breather, or exclusively mouth breather?
I would say I'm a combination, though I do notice that it takes intentional effort to actually start breathing through your nose unless you're in a situation where like you're going to bed maybe, and then you're like, okay, time to go bed, and you breathe through your nose, or maybe you yawn, and you have relax your composure, you just go to sleep. But I did notice one time that I was trying to breathe through my nose while walking. It's hard to learn at first.
Well, it does require a little bit of paying attention, but it's not, again, it's not that difficult to do, and you can train yourself to do it. Now, we will dive in more deeply into the training methods, but just to give you an idea how long the knowledge of nasal breathing has been around, Aboriginal tribes, when Europeans first came here, what they would do to train their children when they were infants, when they'd wrap them up for them to sleep and stuff like that, and put them in a crib, they'd invert their body so that their head was low and their feet were high. Now, just a slight gradient, and it was just so that it would keep their jaw closed. So then they would be forced to breathe through their nose to condition them to breathe through their nose. So, and in that traditional view, they used to view it as like, if you mouth breathe, you are inviting evil into your body. So it's clear that they understood like the mechanics of how, like, how that worked. They didn't maybe understand the minutia, the actual minute details of how it worked, but they understood grossly the difference between breathing through your nose and breathing through your mouth. So again, I can't be stressed enough how important breath work is. Breath work can make a substantial difference in the quality of your life from day to day. So something that's really worth your time and energy, and it does require some effort, but eventually it becomes the norms, right? So it's all you have to do is show up and consistently do it, and eventually that will be the outcome. So just keep that in mind, right? Like that it is critically important. I don't say that lightly. I can't stress it. I can't stress enough just how important it is for humans to be nasal breathing, right? So it's a way to ensure that it prevents the spreads of viruses. It neutralizes them once they get into because if you're breathing them in and out of your nose, and the nitrous oxide is a rich environment inside your nose, guess what? It neutralizes them, that viruses, microbes, and bacteria. So again, can't emphasize or stress the value in learning to nasal breathe or paying attention to nasal breathing. Now, here's where we overlap it with meditation, right? Okay, so what's meditation? Like, they are so closely related, but they're still distinct entities. Meditation is the training of the nervous system to be present. And in that present, you cultivate an awareness of the current moment. And so that you're no longer affected by stimulus independent thought and your subjective worldview and all the negativity that comes from the random thought generators, right? Because remember, they're all the thoughts you generate very typically, even though they're induced by stimuli, they're always self-referential. They're about you, but in not almost the majority of them are not in a positive light. So it amplifies stress. So you could see where that would change your breathing, right? So if your mind is stressing you out, and then your body doesn't know the difference. The nervous system will induce a stress response, which is a fight or flight response, and that will produce a rapid, shallow breathing pattern, right? So that pattern of breathing now will increase the negativity going on within your brain. So then again, more negative thoughts. So then it becomes this really negative feedback loop, right? Like that we're constant, or in medicine, a negative feedback loop means that there is no negative effect, right? A positive feedback loop means that in feeding into itself, it keeps feeding the symptoms and stuff that you experience. So, okay, that's probably confusing. Probably didn't need to hear that. But the point is, it creates a cycle, an unhealthy cycle. All right, so to break with the cycle, that's why you need to, in part, pay attention to your breathing, and that in and of itself, it becomes a form of meditation, where now the focus of your conscious mind is no longer on the random thoughts that your mind's producing, but now you're paying attention to the method and pattern of your breathings, right? So then if your focus is like to be in and out through the nose, and for it to be slow, light, and deep, that'll have long-lasting positive health benefits and effects. Okay, so is that interesting enough for you so far? Like,
Yeah, long-term benefits to nasal breathing. Like, what could that be? Because I know you mentioned before, there's many things it could be.
well, okay, so nasal breathing. We'll do a quick breakdown. So how it influences weight, right? So the more oxygen available, easier for your body it is to break down stored energy, which is fat, right? That's all fat is. It's just your body storing energy because in anticipation of a time where you're not going to have an abundance of availability of food. So the oxygen is critical in actually releasing that, making that energy available. So again, so in terms of weight loss, there's its contribution to weight loss. For athletic performance, nasal breathing, if you can manage it, even under peak performance, it can yield. So it's the equivalent of altitude training. So you see training methods within professional sports where they'll take athletes to like extremely high altitudes above sea level to train in anticipation of events, and then it increases their performance kind of significantly too, I might add. The way I understand it, by as much as 1/5. So that's 20% increase. So if you're somebody who's aspiring athletes, here's the secret to producing a greater output. So faster recovery time, greater stamina endurance, raw strength. All that stuff becomes affected by oxygenation, right? Which is what nasal breathing does. And because the rate is slow, light, and deep, it makes all the oxygen that's available in the bloodstream usable, right? Because if there's a low carbon dioxide content in the bloodstream, the red blood cells hold on to the oxygen, not making it available for working muscles. So the moment you have higher concentrations of CO2 in the bloodstream, then all the red blood cells release the oxygen. So there's some researchers who would argue that CO2 should not be seen as a waste gas, but rather as a hormone, because it triggers a particular response in the red blood cells. So why does it matter to the average person who goes to the gym? And if you can condition yourself to do that, then what you'll experience is an improvement in your physical output. That's it, right? That's the bottom line. So in terms of allergies, remember allergies, if you're breathing in through the mouth, you're giving all those things that would incite an allergic response direct access to your lungs. But by breathing through your nose, the hairs inside your nose act to filter out all those allergens. And if they're a bacterial or microbial or viral, the nitric oxide neutralizes them. And so then the air that's coming into your lungs is filtered and clean, right? So, and then for asthmatics, if they slow down their breathing, then typically the lungs will respond by becoming more relaxed, right? Because asthma is spasming of the lungs, right? So just keep that in mind. Nitric oxide becomes this critical component to like a better quality breathing and then by extension health, right? It affects snoring, it affects mood, and we illustrated how because of the way that how much stress that if you're in the midst of a stress response, it's going to have a negative effect on your mood, right? And it's going to compound everyday stresses. It'll make them feel even greater than they really are, right? But if you're relaxed and at ease and you breathe nasal breathing, then it allows you to be more focused, more present. So does that make sense? I really tried to quickly sum up all the benefits, but I'm sure anyone who's listening to this who might be experiencing things like allergies or snoring or problems with mood and stuff like that, or even stress. Do you see like now how quickly breathing and the way you breathe can be a very potent aid in the way you live from day to day, moment to moment? Does that make sense? Have a delusion any of that?
No, I'm actually very curious about this because I'm a mouth breathing Michael Jagger. So, I'd love to try this out.
Yeah, so again, at the end, when we get close to the end, I'm going to recommend reading for everybody. I will direct you to different experts in breathing. I highly recommend you get their books. I highly recommend you search them out on YouTube and on the net. You'll find them incredibly beneficial. And it also happens to be a very interesting, fascinating subject. And it's something that most of us take for granted. Right? We just assume that like, hey, what are you talking about? I breathe all the time, right? Like, and so they're not wrong in thinking like that. But the problem is, it's the quality of the breathing. It affects the quality of being. So, and those things should be thought of as the same thing. The quality of who you are, and in the life that you're living from day to day, is affected by the quality of the way that you breathe. And so you could see where, because it's having a negative effect on you, that would have a negative effect on your relationships with everyone around you. So even though at first glance it seems like it's incidental or just something really simple, it has profound ramifications, like in terms of like how it'll affect us as individuals, right? Really, really important stuff. Can I get a time check?
Oh yeah, it's 19 minutes in.
All right, okay, cool. So I'm just gonna go through a short list of different methods of meditation that you can use. But what you'll find interesting is almost within every defined method, they overlap with each other because there's so many elements of each of the methods in the other methods, right? And breath, I myself use a breath-based mindfulness meditation, and I also use the Tummo method of breathing, which is a Tibetan Buddhist breathing method that Wim Hof actually, and I'll strongly suggest you check in on Wim Hof. But his method of breathing, the Hof method, is a derivation of that method. Okay, so just I really strongly recommend that you take a look into this subject. It can make such a profound difference in the way that you live that it's no euphemism to say that it could save your life. Okay, so it's really, really important to think in those terms, right? That this is something that can make all the difference in the way that you live. All right, so there are 9 popular methods, right? And I'll just identify them all right now. It's mindfulness meditation, spiritual meditation, focused meditation, movement meditation, mantra meditation, transcendental meditation, progressive relaxation meditation, and loving kindness meditation, and visual meditation. All right, so, and they're not meant to be complicated stuff. This is a Western version of Eastern methods. So we've had them around since basically the late 60s. So they've gone through different interpretations and scientific evaluation, so that they know that these methods are tried and true, that there's value in them. So it's something worth, at the very least, if nothing, just as a point of interest, something to worth considering. But I would, again, I can't stress enough, I would strongly suggest and recommend that everybody consider introducing breath work and meditation into their daily lives. Okay, so mindfulness meditation originates from Buddhist teachings and is probably the most popular form of meditation in the West, right? So, and mindfulness means that you're just you're basically bringing your mind to paying attention to either your rate of breathing or you're watching your thoughts as they're coming and going, but you're not without judgment. You're just sort of letting them come and go and stuff, and you're just observing them. Instead of being reactive to them, you're just observing them. You're being mindful of them and stuff. And you know that if you wait long enough, the thought will get replaced by another one. All right, so that really briefly sums that up. Spiritual meditation is usually under a religious context and stuff like that. So any kind of prayer is essentially a religious, a spiritual meditation. So it's religious based. If you're constantly repeating a prayer for a given amount of time on a daily basis, it lends to producing the same effect that mindfulness meditation teaches you to be present. Right? That's essentially what all these do. They train the nervous system to be present in the moment and not to be distracted, even by natural functions within your own nervous system, which is like stimulus independent thought, which is a byproduct of the default mode network. Okay. Focused meditation involves concentration on the 5 senses. So what you're doing is you're just paying attention to the things you hear, see, feel, smell, and so again, all you're doing is bringing the attention to focus on your senses and your sensory experience, again, without judgment, just to experience it, to put the mind there, right? So when you put the mind there, I like to put it into my breathing, because it does dovetail then into nasal breathing. So then I focus on the way that I'm breathing, right? And the rate is slow, light, and deep. Just keep that in mind. Movement meditation. Yoga is usually thought as movement meditation, but most of the poses in yoga are static. They just hold them for long periods of time, and then you nasal breathe through it, right? So then it's the combination of the physical posture and the breathing that trains the mind to be present, right? That you're there. But really, moving meditation is things like going for a walk and paying attention throughout the course of the walk, gardening. There are other formalized forms of it, like Qigong and Tai Chi. So it's gentle movements, and you have an awareness of your breathing, and the focus is on the movement. And again, all you're doing is teaching the mind to be present in the course of that activity, and then that's training the nervous system, right? So the value comes from daily practice, right? So if you can't muster daily practice, anything less than 4 times a week, and you're not going to get the same kind of benefits. Okay, mantra meditation, which is predominantly seen in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. It's a meditation that uses repetitive sound to clear the mind, or words or phrases and stuff. And Om is the one that most people are even casually, just passively aware of, right? So Om's one of the ones that you hear. Om, right? So that becomes the focus of the meditation. So again, it's it does the same thing. It just trains the nervous system. Transcendental meditation, which involves the use of a mantra. So it's like, again, where the prayer meditation uses religious prayers, or spiritual meditation uses religious prayers. Transcendental meditation will use like just a phrase, right? So, and again, to elicit the same response. Progressive relaxation, also known as body scan meditation, is where what you're doing is you basically bring your attention to your mind, and you travel from one end of the mind to the other, and you stop along, from the top of your head, your face, your eyes, and you slowly work your way down to your feet, and then work your way back up. It's, again, the same thing is being applied. It's training the nervous system, right? And visual meditation is a technique focused on enhancing relaxation and peace and calmness stuff, and where you're visualizing like the very best, like the best thing, the best version of yourself. You put that in your mind and you focus on that, right? So it's just using this method of imagery, like mental imagery, to train the mind to be present. If you're paying attention to the last 9 forms of meditation that I just cited, you can see very easily where they kind of do overlap with each other. So as much as they're distinct, they produce the same effect, but they borrow from each other as well. So again, all you have to do is find a method that really reflects your sensibilities, right? And once you do that, then you're off to the races. And then all you have to do is keep showing up. Just show up. Just do it. I swear by it. I recommend it highly to everybody. I think that about sums it up. Do you have is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, it's good where you said it's essentially practice.
Yeah, again, it gets reduced to that. It's like anything else, it's skill development. So that takes time. You have to invest time and energy to facilitate that outcome. But once you do that, then what you've done is like you said, you created this skill, and then constant practice makes it so easy that you don't ever need to think about it. It's what you do, right? But it requires, I dare I say it, daily practice, all right? So I think in closing, I think I'm about to sum up. Then I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Remember, breath work and meditation are keys to mental and physical health. It can't be stressed enough. I swear by it, and I highly recommend that you all do it. Remember, question everything, including me, especially me, right? I'm not your guru. I'm not a leader. I'm just a guy with questions. Question everything. Thank you for your time.